Jury selection gets underway today in the sentencing phase of a trial for a Western Kentucky man now convicted of murdering 3 children. On Tuesday, Kevin Wayne Dunlap pleaded guilty in Livingston Circuit Court in Smithland to the crimes, but his claim of mental illness was rejected by Circuit Judge Woody Woodall. Dunlap was set to go to trial Tuesday for the deaths of 17-year-old Kayla Williams, 14-year-old Courtney Frensley, and 5-year-old Ethan Frensley. Authorities say Dunlap stabbed the 3 children and attacked their mother, Christy Frensley, and then set their Trigg County home on fire in October of 2008. Attorney James Gibson represents Dunlap.
Your Honor, against the advice of counsel and despite the efforts of counsel, Mr. Dunlap desires to inform the court that he wishes to change his plea from not guilty to guilty but mentally ill.
Circuit Judge Woodall accepted the guilty plea but rejected Dunlap's claim of mental illness.
But I simply don't believe by a preponderance of the evidence that Mr. Dunlap was mentally ill at the time of the commission of these offenses.
The jury will decide Dunlap's sentence. Despite his guilty plea, he still faces the possibility of the death penalty. The prosecution will continue calling witnesses today in the sentencing phase of the Kevin Wayne Dunlap murder trial. Among the first witnesses on Thursday was Shane Lowry, who was among the first to arrive at the scene and fought through the smoke to get inside the burning home. He said he found one of the victims, later identified as Kayla Williams, and was struggling with 2 other men to help get her out through the window when he noticed that she had a gag in her mouth and that her throat had been cut. Lowry said they also realized the reason they were having such a hard time getting her through the window was that her hands were tied behind her back. Another witness, Trigg County Deputy Sheriff Kenneth Butts, said that another victim, Christy Frensley, found with stab wounds in the backyard swimming pool, was unable to identify the man who had raped her, but said he was white and was wearing a Direct TV shirt. A jury of 14, 5 men and 9 women, will decide whether Dunlap should get the death penalty for the crimes. He's already pleaded guilty to killing Williams and her brother and sister, and to raping her mother, and then setting fire to their home in the Roaring Springs community of Trigg County. The trial was moved to Livingston County due to pretrial publicity. Testimony will continue this morning in the sentencing phase of the Kevin Wayne Dunlap trial in Smithland. Jurors who will decide whether Dunlap gets the death penalty for raping Christy Frensley, killing her 3 children, and setting fire to their rural Trigg County home heard tearful testimony Friday afternoon from Frensley, who was the only one to survive the attack. At one point, the judge called a recess to allow Frensley to compose herself after she broke into tears on the stand. She began crying when recalling how her 5-year-old, Ethan Frensley, when ordered out of the room, insisted on hugging her before he left. Kevin Dunlap repeatedly denied to police in an interview on October 18, 2008, any involvement in the attack and brutal murder of 3 children, the rape of their mother, and the arson fire that destroyed their home in rural Trigg County 3 days earlier. Asked by interrogators at one point during the questioning what should happen to the person who committed such crimes, Dunlap replied, "I think they should get the death penalty." The videotape of the police interrogation of Dunlap was the final piece of evidence presented by the prosecution Monday morning before resting its case. Among the first witnesses called to testify for the defense Monday afternoon was Dunlap's mother. Asked about Kevin's childhood, Sheila Dunlap testified that her husband was very strict with him and their other sons, wouldn't allow the boys to have friends visit, and would punish them if his rules weren't followed. Asked her reaction when she learned Kevin had been arrested for the crimes, his mother choked back tears. "I couldn't believe it," she said, "because I know him and I know his heart. I know how much he loves children." A jury in Livingston County will hear closing arguments later this morning before deliberating as to whether Kevin Dunlap should get the death penalty after pleading guilty to murdering 3 children, raping their mother, and setting fire to their rural Trigg County home on October 15, 2008. The defense rested its case Tuesday afternoon in the sentencing phase of Dunlap's trial after doctors testified about a vascular malformation on his brain. Dr. Eric Shields testified Tuesday morning that the absence of brain tissue in an area of Dunlap's right frontal lobe was a developmental anomaly, so that the tissue was probably never there. Neurologist Dr. Christopher King explained to jurors that the frontal lobe has many functions. Among them, he said, it's what makes us social animals. Dr. Michael Nichols testified as a clinical neuropsychologist that a person with a absence of brain tissue in that right frontal lobe region might have difficulty inhibiting his behavior. Asked whether the malformation caused Dunlap to commit the murders and other crimes on October 15, 2008, Nichols say he couldn't say that it did, then added, but given the extent of it and size of it, I can't say that it didn't either. A Livingston Circuit Court jury took less than 3 hours Wednesday to decide Kevin Wayne Dunlap deserves the death penalty for the murders and kidnappings of 5-year-old Ethan Frensley, 14-year-old Courtney Frensley, and 17-year-old Kayla Williams at their home in rural Trigg County on October 15, 2008. Commonwealth's attorney G.L. Ovey.
Justice has been done as much as justice can be done.
That audio from WKDZ. Kayla's father, Doug Williams, thanked the jury.
It was not easy for us and not easy for them to have to sit and look at all that and see all the devastation that he's caused.
Formal sentencing is tentatively set for March 26th. Most callers who weighed in on the decision to give the death penalty to Kevin Wayne Dunlap agreed with the assessment of Commonwealth Attorney G.L. Ovey, who had told jurors Wednesday if it wasn't appropriate in this case, he can't imagine a case where it would be. These are some of the callers who voiced their opinions yesterday on our sister station, News Talk 94.3.
If we wouldn't put him to death, then who would we put to death? Then there's not much sense in having it if we're not going to use it. This seems to be a clear-cut case of it being more than appropriate.
The sad truth, though, is he'll probably outlive listeners before he's ever put to death. The appeal process takes forever.
I just pray that he makes it right with God before he dies, and, God have mercy on his soul, and I pray for these families.
Formal sentencing for Dunlap is set for March 19th. The foreman on the Kevin Wayne Dunlap jury says serving on the panel is something he's glad he did, but not something he would want to do again. The juror, whose name we agreed not to use, said nearly all jurors were in agreement about the death penalty from the beginning.
You got to remember, it only takes one juror to throw the whole... I was on the jury. It only takes one to deliberate. It only takes one to mess it all up.
Well, what was the mood of you 12 there when you got sent back there to say, all right, decide?
The mood was pretty good. 11 out of 12, okay. But you have that one, and you know how the system works. You have that one that you have to hash out and talk about.
The juror who called Greg Dunker on WKYX this morning said serving on the panel has been life-changing for him.
To see what this man actually did, it's very life-changing for me. I mean, Saturday night, my wife and I went to Nashville to the Eric Clapton concert, which was great, and it's something I needed. Well, we were eating, and the ketchup wouldn't come out of the bottle. So she stuck her knife down in the ketchup bottle to get the ketchup to flow. And when she pulled her knife out, it had ketchup all on it, and it just hit me, and I had it was something because I seen that ketchup on the end of that knife. Of course, the knife was stuck in Miss Frensley's throat. When she went to the hospital, it was still in her throat. And that's what I mean by life-changing.
Formal sentencing for Dunlap set for March 19th.